There are very few bikes that you can buy off the shelves and take it on an off-road adventure. Unless you have the money to go for premium adventure tours like the Triumph Tiger, your options are almost non-existent. India needed a true dirt bike, and Hero delivers. Powered by a 199.6cc single-cylinder engine, the motorcycle produces 18.1 bhp of power and, more importantly, 17.1 Nm of torque at 6,500 RPM. There are both carburetor and FI versions available, and I would recommend you to go with the FI variant. What really impressed me was the 154 kgs of curb weight, which includes a 13-liter fuel tank fully fueled. Expected mileage is around 35 to 38 km per liter, and that would give it a massive range of over 450 km, which is important on a touring bike. Suspension is the key component here, and Hero did not disappoint. 37mm telescopic suspension up front with 190mm of travel, and it really absorbs the shocks well. The rear suspension is a 10-step adjustable monoshock with 170mm of travel, and the factory setting was just about perfect for me. There is a 276mm pedal disc up front and a 220mm pedal disc at the rear, along with a single channel ABS. The ABS is not affecting the rear wheel, so there is no need to turn it off while off-roading. The bike gets 21-inch spoke wheels up front along with 18-inch spoke wheels at the rear with thinner off-road knobbies from Seat. Usually on a road bike I would want the tires to be thicker, but since this bike's supposed to go both on and off-road, the tire sizes are perfect. Hero has stepped up with features like LED headlamps, TRL and tail lamps, along with an instrument console which is really easy to read in harsh sunlight. The digital console shows a lot of information, including 2 trip meters showing average speed and time of trip, along with innovative features like Bluetooth connectivity with app-based ride navigation and even an eco mode to make your touring more fuel efficient if you need it. But enough with the discussion, let's ride it out and see what it feels like.
So the Xpulse, riding it in its natural habitat, pretty easy bike to ride, to be honest. Easy bike to stand up on as well. I just got on this bike right now and it feels very natural to stand up on. I've ridden the Himalayan, I've ridden the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, got into some slush. This bike managed that quite well. I mean, yeah, it's got a 21-inch spoke up front, 18-inch spoke wheel at the rear. It's going into slush and mud and doing jumps. I mean, this is the bike, man. I've ridden the Desert Sled. What my problem is, I am a pretty thin guy, so riding a 200 kg bike often, I need a lot more training to handle that 200 kg kind of weight. But this is just 154 kilograms. We're riding the FI version, so very effortlessly going through. And a lot of people talk about like power and all of that. Okay, and you don't really need that much power because as a beginner rider I won't be doing like high speed through this sort of or terrain. It's more about going to be like just like an adventure, going through the terrain. That should be sufficient for me. So what I do require is a little bit of low end torque, so that if I get stuck I can just pull out, and a slower uptake, so that the wheel doesn't spin. And so thus far it seems like we do have all of that. It's got a 190mm suspension travel, I believe, up front. It's hard to remember specs when you're getting challenged by this type of terrain. I mean, it's easy terrain for off-road, but sometimes a little bit of surprise comes all along the way. So standing up again feels pretty natural to me. I would say I like this bike. And you know, cross spoke alloy, cross spoke wheels means that you can ride with spokes and still have tubeless tires, which is not there on this bike. It's something that I would have really wanted to have, but you know, we don't have that. But we cannot expect that in this pricing. This bike is just a 1,19,000 rupees for the carburetor version. 1,29,000. That's on road Kolkata, not ex showroom prices for this bike. For the price and lightweight, easy to ride, everybody should, you know, start training on this if they're thinking of off-roading. So now it's time to take this bike on road and give you my tarmac impressions. Now we're back on tarmac. See how this bike feels. So this bike is still 154 kilograms, which is very light, and it has a longer wheelbase, and I do feel that because to be honest, because of the longer wheelbase, the bike on the straight line stability is more, I guess. The front heavy wheel and the straight lines, I mean, bigger wheelbase, longer wheelbase together give this bike that straight line stability. But cornering wise, you know, it's not the most what you can say, not the best experience. So this is not for cornering, like I said. We're just testing the roadworthiness, because suppose if you want to take this bike to Ladakh from Kolkata or from Bangalore or from Delhi or whatever, you would find a lot of tarmac. It's obviously, we've seen this is excellent off-road. It's light, and like I said many times before, that all adds up. And on bumpers and all that, you don't need to really slow down, you just jump over it. So suspension is the best part of this bike, because that's where I've been finding that even the Himalayan are slight bit lacking, but here I'm happy with the suspension. This is still a brand new bike though. I have to see over long periods of time how much wear and tear this suspension can take. We are cruising at around 90 to 100. So the same thing that we saw on the Extreme. This has thinner tires, by the way, but it's off-road tires, and this bike has a slower uptake, slower acceleration, and that is better for when you're in off-road. And I believe this also has that eco mode. So fifth gear cruising at 100 kilometers per hour, it is very easily possible. We are not pushing or like not trying a top speed attempt or 0 to 60 timings for this bike, because I think it's inconsequential. It will be a little bit slower than the Extreme that we were testing, but as you've seen, the off-road worthiness is really good. And on-road, you know, this is the exact type of riding conditions that you nearly get on your tours. Open highways, you hold 100 kilometers per hour and you sit there comfortably. It doesn't have that much vibration, even feels refined. Not sure why, but this actually feels a slight bit more refined than the other bike. The engine refinement I'm talking about, less vibey, safe cruising, brakes. This has got the pedal discs and reasonable amount of progressive braking. It's not got that bite, and I believe Hero tuned it, because on off-road you need bikes with progressive braking. but it's a strong progressive braking. So this bike is safe for highway. Now a lot of people have been talking about the ABS, and the ABS, as you know, is single channel ABS. So for expensive bikes you have dual channel ABS, and then when you go into off-road, what you basically do is you turn off the ABS on the rear. Here, since it's a single channel ABS, you really don't need to do all that. You just simply have no ABS on the rear. So single channel ABS in this case is actually an advantage. So finally, concluding on the road riding part, this bike can easily do 90 to 100 on the highway cruising. In the city, if you're buying it as your day-to-day bike, it's probably not the best thing. For city ride use, you have the Extreme 200R and the 200S. But if you're one motorcycle guy, you have interest in riding within the city, this is a lightweight motorcycle. It won't be that much of a problem. Yeah, you would not have the advantage of tubeless tires, which the Extreme 200 and even the Xpulse 200T has. But I still like this bike. The riding position, for starting from the riding position, is very comfortable. Like, the handlebars are superbly raised. That's really good if you want to stand up and ride. It's very natural. It's just like the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled. I mean, I was talking to the GM of Ducati Kolkata, and he originally suggested that this bike is just like the Desert Sled. And at first I thought maybe that's just a funny thing, he's just being funny, but really he was being serious. That Desert Sled has a 860mm seat height. I've ridden it. This has a 823, so it's easier, it's much more approachable. But for the riding stance and posture and the way you can stand up on it so easily, if you compare that, yeah, it does feel quite a bit like the Desert Sled. So yeah, this is a pretty nice bike, and I think like I said, it's a fun motorcycle. This is probably the most fun to ride motorcycle I've ridden from Hero, and that's why I'm so happy about it.
To test the Xpulse 200's off-road capabilities, we went to this natural park where people test out their off-road skills and practice. And I got a professional opinion from Prashant Barik, who is an off-road racer. According to him, the ergonomics are just spot on. Even if you are not standing up all the time, you can still most of the off-road terrains. The bike is very lightweight, so it's easy to pick up after every fall. And Hero being very cost-effective, the spare parts will be cheaper. Overall, he is very pleased with the motorcycle and how it handles, and has decided to buy one for himself, and honestly even I am tempted to get one. I think that speaks volumes about how much we both love this motorcycle. I think it makes off-road riding easy. For the beginner rider, you can just go out and start learning on this bike without much fear, and the 823mm seat height is a bit high, but it's as low as adventure bikes can get. For professional riders, I think this will end up in lots of competitions and rallies, and they will need to do very little modifications and they'll be on their way competing on this motorcycle. So it's a real motorsport tool that Hero has delivered. I've been riding the Hero Xpulse 200. I'd keep it very short because this is a new type of motorcycle for me. I'm not really an expert in off-road, but as I've already input Prashanta's inputs on riding this bike, I think that's going to be the final word. I personally enjoyed this motorcycle a lot. It's very easy to ride, and even in the tougher terrains, you're not intimidated by this bike. I'm 5'8". It's got a 823mm of seat height, which is, you know, reachable for me. I'm getting good reach, so even if the bike's getting tilted, I can push it back up. 154 kg, very lightweight motorcycle. So that's, you know, when you're a beginner, you're shaky about off-road, you know, if the bike falls down, you can pull it back up. That's going to give you the confidence. So I think this is a really good bike for people to buy as a second motorcycle, to use as a learning motorcycle for off-roading. It's the parts and accessories coming from Hero is going to be really cheap. The motorcycle itself is just 1,19,000 rupees on road Kolkata for the carburetor, and 1,29,000, just 10,000 rupee more for the FI version. For that price, I think a lot of enthusiasts should be looking at this bike just to buy it and learn how to do off-road riding. This is a great bike to do Leh Ladakh. This is a great bike to do those extreme northeastern sides where you have really bad roads, and that goes without saying. What I want is this bike to become something more than that, a learning tool for most people. So if you are a Ride with Rahul fan, if you're an enthusiast, go check it out, take a test drive. It's reasonably good in the streets, but it's the main fun is on the off-road. So buy this bike just to learn off-road. I mean, that's what I'd have to tell. And anybody who's already an off-road enthusiast, if you're looking for an upgrade from Xpulse 150, then yeah, this makes a good case for itself. So that's it for this motorcycle. I really enjoyed riding it. So if you have enjoyed watching this video, do subscribe and hit that bell icon for next videos. We'll be putting our best efforts. This is Rahul. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.